My name is Katie, and my son Oliver is a toddler at Montessori School of Oakton. As our family continues our Montessori journey, I would love to share a little bit about the Montessori method with you and your family. I'm going to cover a few basic topics as we begin this semester. To start, I'll introduce you to Maria Montessori. Hopefully you will come to know and love her work as you continue with MSO. We'll then dip our toes in a little bit of theory with the absorbent mind, human tendencies, and the sensitive periods. We will work a little bit with our prepared environment and discuss the importance of independence. Finally, we'll look at our role as adults in the child's life. Trevor Eisler wrote a book called Montessori Madness, which gives a sound, accessible presentation of the Montessori method. Look for this book to appear on a book club list coming soon. Eisler says, though she was a fascinating lady and led an extraordinary life, her work is really not about her. She was the first to acknowledge that she was not the author of her method so much as the children she observed were. That's what she did, observe children. Maria Montessori was, first and foremost, a doctor and a scientist. She chose the medical path despite abuse and discouragement as the only woman in her medical school. She continued to study and work until the end of her life, approaching all that she did with a scientific mind. Maria Montessori had a son, Mario, who worked closely with her in adulthood and who continued to work within the Montessori method. She didn't just theorize and give lectures, however. Dr. Montessori worked closely with children around the world, never straying too far from a classroom, so that she could continue to learn from the children. This is just the tip of the iceberg that was Maria Montessori, but as Eisler says, our class is not about Maria. It's about her work. Maria's son Mario worked deeply with their concept of universal human tendencies. Dr. Montessori said that a child's desire to work represents a vital instinct since he cannot organize his personality without working. A man builds himself through working. We'll talk a little bit more about these human tendencies. The website Montessori for Everyone gives this excellent description of 11 human tendencies. Orientation. Human beings want to know their relationship to the environment around them. When children enter a new environment, they often want to look at and touch everything around them. They enjoy knowing where they fit in, from learning their address to finding their country and continent on a map. Order. People prefer order to chaos and confusion. Order brings predictability and security. There are two kinds of order, external and internal. An orderly classroom, which is external, helps children to have orderly thoughts, which are internal. Exploration. Our Earth is filled with wonderful sounds, scents, textures, tastes, and colors. Children are naturally curious and love to use their senses to learn more about the fascinating world around them. Communication. Humans delight in conveying thoughts, feelings, and information to each other. Various types of communication include the written and spoken word, touch, facial expressions, gestures, art, music, and dance. Communication is the link of understanding between people, both face-to-face and from generation to generation. Activity. People generally like to stay busy. For children, movement can be enjoyed for its own sake, rather than always having a goal or end product in mind. Even children who have very little to play with will find ways to be active through games, songs, dance, and pretend play. Manipulation. Humans need to take hold of their environment to understand it. It is the next step after exploration. Once you have found something interesting, you will quite naturally want to use it in some way. This is how the concept of tools began. Work. Humans feel worthwhile through their work. Work leads to a feeling of accomplishment and self-respect. Maria Montessori believed that it was through work that a child constructed his true self, free of defect or misbehavior. Repetition. This occurs when a child repeats a task over and over again. Oftentimes it is with the intent to master the task, but even after the mastery occurs, a child may continue to repeat the activity for the sheer pleasure of doing so. Exactness. Have you ever seen a child get upset because something was put back in the wrong place? Or watched them line up their blocks neatly before building a tower? Instinctively, humans seek to be precise in their work. Doing something exactly right brings enormous satisfaction. Abstraction. This is truly the characteristic that sets us apart from animals. We are able to visualize events that have not yet occurred. We are able to feel and express emotions that are not tangible. We can imagine something that exists only in our minds and then take the steps to make it happen. Perfection. All of the tendencies culminate in this one. Once we've explored, manipulated, and worked in our environment, we can perfect our activities. In doing so, we are the masters of our own minds and bodies as well as the tasks we set out to do. Again, the definitions of these human tendencies can be found on the website montessoriforeveryone.com. Maria Montessori talks about the child's mind as absorbent. She says, adults admire their environment. They can remember it and think about it, but the child absorbs it. The things he sees are not just remembered. They form a part of his soul. He incarnates in himself all in the world about him that his eyes see and his ears hear. In us, the same things produce no change, but the child is transformed by them. Dr. Montessori theorized that children under 6 can learn in a way that adults cannot, through what she termed the absorbent mind. Children are able to learn, especially culture, without any effort. Think of how easy it is for your child to learn whatever language you speak at home, in comparison to how hard you struggled to learn Spanish, French, or German back in high school. They can speak whatever language or languages are presented to them regularly before age 6, while if we studied for 6 years, we would still be imperfect speakers. Children under 3 are still learning unconsciously, which means there is pretty much no filter. They take it all in. Your little sponge is absorbing everything they can using all of their senses, so give your child experiences to absorb the world. The more they live, the more they learn. Dr. Montessori noticed that children universally develop certain skills at certain times. She called these sensitive periods, explaining that a child's different inner sensibilities enable him to choose from his complex environment what is suitable and necessary for his growth. They make the child sensitive to some things, but leave him indifferent to others. When a particular sensitiveness is aroused in a child, it is like a light that shines on some objects, but not others, making of them his whole world. It's important for us as adults to observe the child so that we recognize when these windows open, and then do all we can to help the child explore these intense interests. For the purposes of our children in the 0 to 3 classes, there are 7 sensitive periods to consider. Keep in mind that these periods overlap. While a child might show special interest in one over another, they are still sponging up all they can in all these areas during the sensitive period. These sensitive periods are always tied to their physical development as well. As their body becomes more able, their minds focus on things in the environment that will allow them to develop these areas. The special window for weaning is between 5 and 12 months. Here the child is learning to feed himself and showing readiness to be independent from the mother for nourishment. During the first 5 years, the child is sensitive to grace and courtesy. They learn to greet people, to ask using please, and to respect others. They watch us to learn the special ways we do these things in our cultures and in our families. For the child's first 6 years, she is taking in her entire language. She listens to us talk, loves to read books, and wants to know the names for everything. In the first 4 years of life, the child is learning how he will move, from the first efforts to focus the eyes and using the hand to grasp a toy, to hopping and skipping and using their fingers to grasp a pencil and write. The child is practicing coordinated efforts to control his body. You may have noticed your child arranging their toys in a specific way or being insistent about putting on his pants first and then his shirt. This is because a child is sensitive to the order of things between birth and 5 years. The child really hones her 5 senses in the first 6 years, really wanting to manipulate their environment to get a complete sensorial picture of the world. Finally, as soon as the child is sitting up, she is capable of learning to use the toilet. Ideally, this process is completed by the age of 3. The child's environment is very important. Imagine landing on an entirely foreign planet and learning as much as you can about how to live there. Wouldn't it be easier if things were your size? If there was some recognizable sense of order to things? if you could learn their language. That is what our world is like to a child who has only ever known the womb. Montessori emphasizes the preparation of the environment and the things in the environment are the first act of a deeper transformation, which consists of leaving the child free to act according to his or her own natural tendencies. Before our children are even born, we are told to baby-proof our homes. While our top priority should always be the safety of our children from serious injury, we want to do the opposite of making our home baby-proof. We want to make our homes baby-friendly. Rather than blocking the child from access to things, allow the child freedom, making sure everything he can access, he can safely explore. Place a few toys on low shelves so the child can reach them herself. Make sure not to have so many that the child is overwhelmed by all of the choices. You can change them out regularly if you notice your child losing interest in a specific toy. When choosing clothes for your toddler, make sure they can move around in them. Also, choose clothes and shoes that are easy for them to put on themselves. When the child is ready to care for themselves and their space, provide tools that are comfortable for their size. A small brush for their hair, a small broom to sweep, baskets for laundry that they can reach to put their clothes in. Have books, 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 and more books. The child is absorbing your language, and books help with concepts like beginning, middle, and end, as well as rhyme and meter. The most important part of the prepared environment is you. The child looks to you to learn how to conduct herself, so spend some time preparing yourself. Shinichi Suzuki says, "When I go into a room to teach small children, I stop for a moment so that I can descend to their level of physical ability and can rise to their level of childlike wonder and awe." Your child is on a lifelong mission to gain new levels of independence. Maria Montessori gives this advice about fostering independence. Never help a child with a task at which he feels he can succeed. From the minute your child exits the womb and the umbilical cord is cut, she is experiencing her first step in independence. As she grows and her mind and her muscles develop, she can do more and more for herself. Two important keys for independence are freedom and discipline. You can't have one without the other. It is important to give your child opportunities to express their independence and practice their new skills. If they want to take off their shoes and put them back on 100 times, let them do it if you have the time. I remember friends and family hearing my son Oliver fussing while he was working on his belly as a baby. They would say, "Oh, he doesn't sound very happy. Do you want me to help him out?" I would tell them, "No thank you. That's his 'this is hard work' cry. Let's give him a chance to work through it." Of course, it is important to know when your child is truly upset and needs your comfort. But it is equally important to let the child work through challenges to know they can do it. Speaking about freedom, Maria Montessori says, "A child's liberty should have as its limit the interests of the group to which he belongs. We should therefore prevent a child from doing anything which may offend or hurt others. But everything else, every act that can be useful in any way whatever, may be expressed. It should not only be permitted, but it should also be observed by the teacher. This is essential." When it comes to freedom, ask, what will it hurt? If the answer is nothing, let your child choose their activity and watch them while they do it. Watching your child explore their environment can give you clues about their interests and developing abilities. Freedom isn't just letting our children do whatever they want, whenever they want. You can't have true freedom without discipline. The Montessori method doesn't look at discipline as just a list of rules and consequences. Instead, it's a logical inner discipline that the child can carry through life and apply to all situations. Let us remember, guides Dr. Montessori, that inner discipline is something to come and not something already present. Our task is to show the way to discipline. Discipline is born when the child concentrates his attention on some object that attracts him and which provides him not only with a useful exercise, but with a control of error. Thanks to these exercises, a wonderful integration takes place in the infant soul, as a result of which the child becomes calm, radiantly happy, busy, forgetful of himself, and, in consequence, indifferent to prizes or material rewards. So what do freedom and discipline look like? Here is a list of common freedoms and their accompanying limits. The child has the freedom to choose any activity, though we ask that the child is knowledgeable about the material. In a classroom, this may be a formal lesson on how to wash a mirror. At home, this may mean taking a minute to show the child how to pour the milk in his cereal before allowing him to grab the jug and do it himself. The child may choose where they want to work with a material, but this is limited to places that are logical for the activity. At home, we wouldn't wash his breakfast dishes in his bedroom. The logical place for that work is the kitchen. The child can decide how long he would like to work on an activity. Sometimes that means that the child would like to read books for hours. It would be wonderful if we always had the time to do this, but sometimes we need to go to the pediatrician for a checkup or take Big Brother to his piano lesson. We don't want to interrupt a child's work to start nap or a meal where possible, but there will be unavoidable scheduling limitations to his work. A child can always decline the invitation to participate in an activity as long as it is safe to do so. If the family is watching their favorite holiday film together and the child would rather play with her toys, she has the right to do her own thing. If the family is going on a walk to the park, the child cannot be left home alone if she'd rather not go, so while she can refuse to play at the park, she cannot refuse to go with the family. The classroom, or the home, belongs to everyone in it, so the child should have the freedom to move around in the space. There may be ample space for rolling around on the living room floor, but jumping like a frog in a tiny bathroom just doesn't make sense. We've all heard the expression, children should be seen and not heard, and luckily, this is not a prevalent thought in today's society. Your child should be allowed to speak and interact with others. One logical limit to this is using appropriate volume for the situation. Children deserve a rest from work. As long as the child is not being destructive during their rest between work, they should be free to enjoy the break. Maria Montessori suggests that a child should not be forced to eat. The child may choose to eat when the family eats, or may decide that they are not hungry and choose not to eat. In some families, this means that the child can choose another constructive activity to do. In other families, this may mean that the child sits at the table with everyone else, but may choose to eat their food or not to. With specific regard to nap, a child can choose to sleep or not to sleep. If they are choosing not to sleep, most teachers and parents do ask that the child at least either sit or lay down and rest. Outside of safety or health concerns, the most important limitation on the child within the family or classroom is that their choices show respect for others. The child may not choose to disrupt or hurt others. When your child can make so many choices for herself, only limited where it makes sense to be limited, she can start to guide herself toward good choices and away from poor ones. Our children are doing all of this hard work absorbing what they can from the environment and growing themselves through their experiences. So what is left for us to do? Plenty. Maria Montessori reminds us that the adult himself is part of the child's environment. The adult must adjust himself to the child's needs if he is not to be a hindrance to him, and if he is not to substitute himself for the child in the activities essential to growth and development. What does Montessori ask of us as parents? First of all, especially with infants and toddlers, we all need to slow down. Remember that it's going to take your child a lot longer to do something for himself than it would if you did it for him. But it's worth it, so make the time whenever you can to allow them the time they need. Observe your child. When the child is left to themselves to explore and play, they will show you what they like and what they need. You can learn so much just by watching your child. Take a look at your home. Is it baby-proof or baby-friendly? Are there things your child is getting into that you wish they wouldn't? Move the things, or show her how to use them properly. Take some time to reflect on you. What ways are you showing your child good manners, respect of others, peace, and harmony? Talk with your children to teach them language, not just words, but tone, inflection, and grammar. They absorb everything you do and say, so do and say as much as you can. When you observe your child, you will find out more and more about them. Then you can brainstorm ideas for toys, activities, and books you know they'll enjoy. If you are feeling a particular frustration or challenge, observe, and then brainstorm ways to let your child express their independence that still meets his needs for safety, your family's needs for harmony, and your own personal need for sanity. And of course, come to class. Your child gets a wonderful opportunity to interact with other children, learn how to resolve conflict, and explore the Montessori classroom. You get a chance to talk with other parents, get ideas from the classroom, and work with a trained, certified teacher to make your Montessori journey successful and fun. The teacher has the same responsibilities you do. The teacher must mentally prepare herself for the day with your children by slowing down, observing your child, and preparing the environment. Most importantly, though, the teacher is here to work with you to make Montessori work for your family in your home as well as in the classroom. Talk to your classroom teacher and don't be afraid to ask questions. Miss Sandy posts relevant articles and tips for making Montessori work for your family on Twitter. Make sure to follow her at MSO_3. For more information about Montessori School of Oakton, visit www.oaktonmontessori.com. New this semester, Miss Sandy will be introducing a book club for parents of MSO children under 3. We will be sharing some excellent parenting resources and enjoying each other's company while we talk about different aspects of Montessori parenting. I can't wait to see you and your child in class!